I hope everyone can see my screen. Hello?
Yeah, we
Yeah,
can
we
see.
can see.
Yeah. Okay. So let me start with the session. So welcome to engineering student MuleSoft Meetup 6. And the topic for today's meetup is DataWeave with a MuleSoft basically. And Nitish Raj will be the speaker for today's session. So let me start with some safe harbor statement. The both speaker and the host organizing this meetup on the in the individual capacity, and like we are not representing any organization here. The presentation is completely for learning purpose only, and we are not holding any responsibility whether this solution will work for your business requirement or not. So this present is not meant for any promotional activity. Recording will be uploaded within 24 hours, so you can check the event page within 24 hours. So you can get the recording. You can ask the question at any time. Try to make the session as interactive as so you can ask question at any time. Basically, you can use the chat window, and we have enabled the presenter mode for everyone, so you can speak up also. Finally, you need to give a feedback. So basically, it's very important to provide the feedback for the session. This is useful for speaker as well as for the organizer for selecting the future topics and the speakers basically, and this can help you also basically, right? So like I will just skip the introduction for the organizer. So we are the four organizer in this particular meetup group. So yeah, just Jitendra, Dipesh, Nitish, and Ravi Tamada. Yeah, Nitish, like I think you can take the session from here. So I will just unshare my screen and you can start with your part.
Sure, Jitendra. Thank you so much. Let me share my screen. Okay, just a second. Let me know when you see my screen.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, we did not speak about organizers, Jitendra.
Yeah, I told you, right? So like I will just skip the introduction about the organizer. So
Okay,
I just yeah.
not a problem.
So
Okay,
like
let me. Mhm.
just Ravi, if you want to give your introduction, you are always welcome, but just I'm skipping my introduction. I have already done introduction a lot of time, so that's why I'm skipping it. So Ravi, like if you want to give an introduction about you, you can go ahead and you can give.
Yeah, no, Jitendra, let's continue. Yeah,
All right.
thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I will not leave this chance to introduce myself anyway. Hey guys, good afternoon, good noon, good morning, where from joining in. This is Nitish. I'm working as a lead software engineer with EPAM Systems. And a little bit about myself. I started my IT journey in 2014 as a Java developer with one of the organizations in Delhi. Then I was with Infosys for almost 4 years as a Java and MuleSoft developer, and actually started working on Mule 3.8 versions in 2016 with one of the biggest clients, which is still in the market and going on very strong, HSBC. And a news which is, I guess, I was very excited about is I recently got MuleSoft certified developer level 2. And along with that, I'm a co-leader of this engineering student meetup group and also Manchester meetup group, and an official mentor, MuleSoft mentor, where I help and you know teach freshers or my colleagues as well to solve their queries, right? So if we are up, you can nominate yourself or you can nominate others as well to become a MuleSoft mentor. So starting the topic for the day with the data view basics, and I have kept this very simple, very short. So I am planning to complete it in next 40 or 45 minutes. So if you have any questions in meantime, just put in the chat box, or you have presenter mode, you can speak as well by unmuting. All right. So a quick recap of our previous meetups. So first we started with MuleSoft and score capabilities, and we saw how we can design the API using RAML, which is proprietary language of, API specific language to MuleSoft, API implementation using API Kit Router, and API policies using API Manager. And the second last was MuleSoft API testing. That was M unit testing. That unit testing, that how we can test our MuleSoft applications, followed by error handling the MuleSoft, which was a brilliant session. And today we have DataWeave basics. Okay, so let's start with very basic question: what is DataWeave and why we use it, right? So first of all, DataWeave is functional programming language which is designed for transforming data inside the MuleSoft applications, right? It's an expression language. Like you write expression, it could be writing your expressions in, transformation, your connector configurations, like if you have HTTPS, HTTP database, anything. So how do you configure that those connectors? You can write this DataWeave as well. Like it says, yeah, it can be used to access and evaluate the data in payload, attributes, and variables of a mule event. So if we are, if like, since this is engineering student MuleSoft group, I am assuming most of the people here would be freshers or coming from some other background, right? So we'll be taking over like what is the payload, attribute, and variables as well in the upcoming slide. And it is case sensitive. What does that mean? So if we are evaluating an expression, and if you have made some, minor mistakes, like, you know some small letters to have you have made to capital letters, you won't find your result properly because it's a case sensitive, so you have to take care of that as well. And it supports autocomplete. If you're coming from Java background, it's just controller space can autocomplete your coding part that on the particular line that you are on. So that's the same here as well. It supports auto completion, and it can be used to take one piece of data, which is like, we'll explain it using one use case. All right, and it is also available in other contexts like a command line tool, so you can use it as a command CLI as well, which we won't be going in detail for this one because very basic one. And the current version of DataWeave is 2.4, which is like whenever we work on DataWeave, we usually mention just the major version of it, which is DataWeave version 2. Before Mule 4, when working with Mule 3.9.3, so that time we had DataWeave first version, DataWeave 1. And this is how DataWeave works basically. If you see on the very left side, data in, which means like you are putting some data whenever you are scripting the data, like transforming, writing some expressions. So first of all, what you do is like you put the data, and data view, what it does is like, it accepts the data in a reader, and the reader sends into the canonical model. What is canonical model here? Canonical model is kind of one of the, in simplest form, it's a design pattern as well. But what is it is like, how the data weave script will behave it when the input is sent. That is called canonical model. So like if you're sending it in JSON format, XML, or Java format, that will be a canonical model for this data weave script. And here the canonical model is again passed from database script to your writer. What is that writer? So once you have written your database script here, like you have transformed the data, it will write that. I mean, it will that CDM, which is canonical model here, will be accepted in writer, and the data will be, data will, you can see the data as an output. We'll see it using some hands-on as well. Let's see. One of the sample use cases here, I have kept it very simple because, I think it's very easy to explain in layman terms. So suppose I'm a user and I have this Amazon mobile app, right? And I go to Amazon mobile app, I buy, say, an iPhone, which I cannot afford right now, but say I buy something else, right? And make the payment, each and everything. What happens in the background, right? So my user details, I have sent my user details like name, mobile number, my address, billing address. We have billing address, shipping address, and all those. You might be wondering, like most of the cases, you have already created an account, right? But keeping that aside, this is a use case where you say like, hey, where would be my personal details will be stored in, right? where my order number, billing address, shipping address will be stored in, and where my, that's the price for that particular item, the item details, order numbers, right? It will be stored in all the different systems. So like I'm using a Salesforce here, and some part of my user detail will be sent to Salesforce. Say the Salesforce accepts only JSON format, right? And it cannot accept the data in XML format, but only in JSON or Java. And this is database. So database will only accept Java format, and the SAP is an enterprise, ERP system that will accept only the XML payload. But how we can push the data in different systems in several or multiple um, for data formats, right? And if we are using a MuleSoft, like say ESB here, it might be Mules or some other, but we are taking example MuleSoft here because this is a MuleSoft Meetup group. So we'll be using a MuleSoft here, which will send the data in desired format to all these systems. And we in actual projects we are doing this, and if you'll be working on MuleSoft projects, you'll be doing that in your day-to-day tasks. So let us now understand how the architecture of DataWeave script looks like. So first of all, a DataWeave script consists of a header and a body. What is header and a body? Separated by three dashes. We'll see what is that and why is that basically. So header is basically your header includes your directives. Directives means which directs what to be imported, what should be the input, what should be the output of that. It's kind of header which kind of it has that script metadata basically. So where you can declare your all these directives. So like using import, what is the input type, what will the output type. You can have your global variables, functions, etc. And what is the body? Body here is the body will contain the expression that produces the resulting output. So like in body, you will be writing your expressions like if else conditions. So such conditions you'll be creating some mapping transformation directly, right? So that all will be a part of body here. So this is an example of my database script where you see the first one, DataWeave version. So the very first line of your directive, and collectively you can say header. The first line of your header will be a DataWeave version, which you only see a major one, right? I'm not seeing a 2.4, 2.3 any. I'm just mentioning this percentage sign DV space 2.0, 2.0. Okay, and this whole thing, as I said, is collectively you can call it a header. So header will contain directives that apply to the body expression. So like this directive major version here will import all the modules, all the core modules that will be required to write you to this script. So like we talked about auto script, auto completion of scripts and everything, right? So this will be importing all the modules and you can use that all here, right? If you want to use, when I say all the modules, it doesn't mean actual all the modules, but the basic modules. Like if you want to go with some cryptographic modules, some more of the string operations, then you need to define the import functionality in this header directive itself. And the next one is, if you see three dashes here, head and body separator by three dashes, what does that mean? This means this upper part will act as a header. Okay, I won't be writing my transformations, but once we progress, it's you will find that we can write the transformations as well in my header, right? But for the simplicity purpose, let's say, in here I'll have all my directives, and below that have a body which will generate the output. Okay, any questions till this part? I think it's very necessary to understand the basics, so I have kept this session very basic and simple. We are not going through any much of operations transformations in this meetup. So if you have any questions, do let us know, we can clear that out. All right, talking about data types. If you're coming from Java background or if you're coming directly from college, you must have gone through, say, C, C++, or Java, right? In where we uh, learn data types. So, like in here itself, in MuleSoft and DataWeave, we have some types of data types where we can categorize them in simple and composite. What are the simples one? Simple, if you say string, boolean, number, this date and date and not this date is not an empty, is kind of date data type itself. Array is a composite and object as well. So if you start from string, so string is basically it's kind of simple literal enclosed in double quotes. So like if I'm writing my name Nitesh in double quote, it becomes a string, right? And what is Boolean? Boolean data type. So Boolean data type is basically whenever, say, I'm having some conditions in if else, like if my name is this, I should be male. If my name is that, I should be female, else others, right? So Boolean data types usually has, kind of a true or false without any code. So like if you write, these are the like keywords because they're kind of one of the simple data types, right? If you enclose this with double quotes, it will become a string but not the boolean. So write it without any quotes. Number is like you can think of any number, be it integer, short, double, float, not float here, double. So like in Java we have for like short, we have integers, we have a range, we have a long, right? But here in the number it will accept each and everything. Next one is date and date time. If you see this a kind of a string without any double quotes enclosed by pipes, that is your date and date time here, right? Next is an array. What is an array? So set of values enclosed in square brackets, kind of like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So array here means this doesn't necessarily mean it will have only numbers. It can have strings. It can have your any simple type of data type here, your composite as well. An array can have multiple objects inside it. An array can have a set of arrays as well. It can have string, boolean, anything, right? How do you define or how do you see what is an array? We'll see that as well. Or I can skip this probably. Okay, let me go here. So this is my this is online playground. You can find it like by just typing dwlang.fun, which is this one, and it will open you up this page. This is your DataWeave interactive language online playground where you can come and practice, and you can if you're working in projects, you can also write your DataWeave expressions here, copy, and then paste it into your actual on Anyone Studio. Okay, I'll go to that. And if talking, yeah, we were talking about array. So if you say what is an array, so how we can do it. So simplest form of array is like just 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, right? This is an array. Can I have an array? So this are all the numbers. Can we have an array of say strings as well, right? I say yes. I'll just say Nitish. Okay. If you see as number, this is string. What if I need to have one array of an object? Can I have that? Yes, I can have. So like I say here, name is Nitish, right? So array can have any kind of simple data types and composite data types inside it. The next one was object. What is an object? And yeah, an array will be always enclosed by your square brackets. We call it square bracket here. Okay. And how about object? If we just change it to curly braces, it becomes an object, right? An object will always have a key value pair. In array, we did not see any key value pair, right? It has just the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this, all. It doesn't have any key value pair. It has an element which is an object, and that object has a key value pair, correct? And also it will have your index. So like array starts from 0th index, goes to the n minus 1, where n's value is, the total number of elements in your array. So like if somebody asks what is um size of this array, what you'll say? It's 0, 1, 2, right? Because it starts from 0, 1, 2. Talking about objects now, as I said, object will have a key value pair. So I'll say a key and a value, right? So a key and value pair. Can we have arrays inside an object? The answer is yes. Like how do you define it? It's on you, right? So let's go back to our slide. Any questions still here? Till data types? Jitendra, if you have any questions, just let me know. I'm not seeing at the QA. I'm in chat box. All right. The next one is data operators. So what are the data operators? We saw about simple and composite uh, types. The next one is data operators. So data operators are symbols that enable you to perform operations on data to produce a result. Like say plus plus is one of the operators, which is like which concatenates two strings, right? And you see, it is the same as most common programming languages. Like plus plus, if you'll find in Java, you'll find in C plus plus, and others as well. Like for mathematical operators, like plus is there, it's for addition, minus, multiply, and for division, right? We'll find it in most common programming languages, not in just in DataWeave. So even if you're coming from any other programming language or any other tool, you'll find this same. Next one we have is equality and relational operators. So like it, it returns you the result as a Boolean value and true or false. So like if you're comparing say two numbers, like 2 is less than 3 or 3 is greater than 2, less than equal to, and all those, right? So, and the next one is, I mean, we have so many operators, but I'm just mentioning the most basic and common ones here to start for you to start with. If you see the logical operators here, so I mean, this logical operator, you'll be using it a lot when you're working on the MuleSoft projects. So like we have not means negates the result of the input. So like if you say some array that we just saw is empty or not, right? We can have this operator in use. This is not, this is negate the result of the input. And an or is like, again, same in programming language. If you say and, it means the condition to your left of the and to the right of your and will both be considered, right? So like if I say, hey, my name is Nitish and Raj, so it will say yes, that's true. If I say my name is Nitish and ABCD, that will say no, I mean false, because that's not my name, because not both of the conditions are true here. And or means either of the conditions should be true. Okay, quiz time. So I have kept a very simple basic quizzes in the here, so just to make it very interactive. All right, you can just type in chat box, and for each and every quiz will be just wait for 15 seconds to move on to the next topic. All right, so here, which one of the below is a valid JSON object? So I said JSON object can have curly braces, right? And it is in key value pair. So which one of here is a valid JSON object? Last 5 seconds, you can type it in chat box. We'll see the answer and we'll proceed. Okay. This one, second one, because if you see it has a curly braces, it has a key value pair. The first one has key value pairs, but it is inside square bracket. That doesn't make it, an object. It's an array. It's an object inside an array. The last one is nothing. It is string enclosed in curly braces, so it's nothing here. The next question, which are the examples of a valid array below? So if we have three arrays, and which would be the valid arrays here? A, B, C. It, like, you can mention all three just to. Are we getting any answers as well?
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right. If you have said A and B, then you're right, because it's an array. You can clearly see with an object inside, and it's an array of numbers. And last one is as such nothing. Okay. Moving to the next one. When I say we'll see what are the payload attributes and variables again, so we can, most of the times if you're working on MuleSoft and not doing very advanced transformations, will be, dealing with expressions around payload attributes and all those. So this is just a kind of revisit. This is a mule event. Mule event will have your two components. One is your mule message, another is variable. Your mule message will have attributes and payload. So payload is your actual data. If you're sending, say, employee number, employee name, my name, anything, that will be part of payload. And attribute is, again, you can send some part of data and attribute as well, you know, but it's best to send some part of it where you can do some filtering, sorting out of that. And attribute, if you're using kind of, say, HTTPs, it will have some metadata of that HTTP request as well. That will be part of attribute. And last one is variable. So you can go and set some variables inside your DataWeave scripts. You're using your set variable component as well. Okay. And how you can access mule objects, right? So if you have to access, say, this is like, you can just have a look at it, server, this dot mule dot version app. We are more concerned about this later part, where if we want to have payload, right? Since payload is a part of your mule message itself, what we can do is, like, we can navigate it through message.payload, or you can directly say payload, right? Most of the times we directly say payload. Yeah, that's fine too. And if you have to access the variable, how you can access the variable? So it's like, syntax is was dot your variable name. And attributes will have your query parameters, your URI parameter, your say, if you're working on a client, I mean HTTPS, it will have your metadata of that request as well. So you can have it, use it, attributes dot query parameters dot your query parameter name. Quiz again, a simple quiz. How a query param with a key name can be read using the DataWeave expression. We just saw, like, can we use payload dot query parameter, or attributes dot query parameter dot name, right? So, like, since query parameter will be a part of your payload until unless you just define as a string saying, hey, this is my query parameter, then it will be a part of your payload. Otherwise, query parameter is a keyword, and it will only be processed from your attributes. Okay. All right, coming to the main part now, we'll be writing some expressions for JSON and Java input and output here. All right, some time for now the hands-on walkthrough. We'll be seeing how we can, what is the transform message component, or what are the metadata propagation, and we'll see the preview feature in Studio. Okay, and we'll create some transformation around that. So let's go to the here. Let's go to here. Okay. Okay. So first of all, if you come to Anyone Studio, on your right side, you see palette, right? And in favorites, you'll have transform message, which is a part of core component, right? Transform message. So this says DataWeave transform component. That means this is my component where I'll be writing my expressions, will be writing my transformations. So you just click on it and drop it here. You can just drag and drop, right? From here, just drop it here. What will this open for you? and just, yeah. So if you see on the left hand side, what you have is your input side. Okay, so this is your input side. I mean, to whatever the component you have on your left side will be passing the payload as an input to this component, and it will be shown here as a part of your input. If you see, you have three parts, and this is an MuleSoft event, Mule event here, right? Payload, variables, attributes. It's part of Mule event itself, right? So you'll see it here. On the right hand side, we don't know whether we'll be getting what or not here. So that's why we don't have anything here. But what you can do is you can define your metadata. So suppose if we have a payload of say employee number, name, and all this coming from here, and you want to map it to the right hand side, what you can do is define your metadata here, define your metadata here, and just drag and drop. I mean, just map it. We'll seeing that in a minute. And on the right side, you have this transform message component where you can, this is your database script with your directives, your separator, and your body part. Okay. And here you see it will have kind of three pens to show you the graphs as in graphics. Basically, if you see here, you have um, on one on the left side, on the one on the right, and on center one there is, kind of um, map map lines that we see, which means whatever if you write here will be show what will be shown, the database script, input and output, and here all the lines will be shown. If I just click on this, I won't be seeing those lines. Okay. The last one is just the DataWeave script here, which is says the just the source only. So I'll be just seeing the source. I cannot see the metadata output that I'll be defining it, right? And the last will be my preview. What is a preview? So if you see, so say preview as in whatever the data script you write here, it will generate the output of that, right? Because I don't have any database script written, it's just an object with curly braces. It shows it's an object, right? Let's change it to JSON based, and I'll say um, message and success. So you'll see it generates an output as a preview and say message success. So whenever you are writing any database script, you can just click on preview. It creates a preview for you, generates it, and it can be shown here. But say most of the times, if you're not say it's really happens that you cannot see the preview here. That is because there is a tooling instance running behind the scenes, and that tooling instance has stopped. That's why you're not able to save this preview. It cannot generate. And how we can check that? It's a very basic thing. Go to your Windows, this not Windows, sorry, window, and go to your preferences. In preferences here, you can just type for tooling, and we'll show you a tooling term here inside Anypoint Studio. So here you can see it has your initial memory, maximum retries, default connection. We are not going to see that. What we are concerned about is, one second. Yeah, your tooling instance here. Okay, so you can click on your check status here. It says studio status are running, and you can, if it is not running here, if it's not running here, you can restart the studio service. All right, and just apply and close. It will be back. So if there was an error not showing the preview, it will be shown here. Okay, now we were talking about how to define this metadata. Let's go back to this graphics pan and how we can define the metadata here. So let's click on this defining metadata. You can define an input. So say I'm going to create an input file which will be fed into it. It kind of will be sample file of what your input will be, right? So click on add. I'm just saying um, DataWeave input, create type. You'll see here type, it will be default as simple type and string. You can change it. Okay. So say I'm changing it to the JSON format. And like I need to have JSON file, and it will give you two examples, two options here. One is schema, another is example, right? Schema means like JSON schema, what are the data type, what will be the key value fields and all those. And but if we have an example file as well, kind of a dummy file, a sample file, it will show that as well with all your what do you say, all your key and value pairs or all the data, right? And there is one very interesting thing to note here. If you see, so it says this particular JSON file that I am trying to import it here, trying to add it here as a metadata, will be copied to source main resources examples. Okay. So whatever you import it, whatever you add as a metadata will be going to this one, right? So just make sure if you are appearing for any interviews, this might be a question. Okay, just click on these three dots. I have say account.json. I've just kept it for practical purposes. So I'll click on account.json and we can see what are all the fields here, like account ID, country, state, and all those. Just say select, and you can see all those fields name here. Okay. So suppose if I am trying to map it here, so what I can do is I can have my output. So this was my input file. I can have my output file, sample file as well, and I can just drag and drop for the simplest of the transformations. Okay. So same as I have one here again. Say which one is it? Okay, I'll see accounts. I think both are same, but just for simplicity, I'm showing it. Okay. All right, so if you see, you had an arrow object, you need to map it, right? So how do you can just drag and drop to it and it will map you on your behalf, okay? Like uh, country to country, street to street, and state to say state, and it will create. And you will be wondering, I did not tell you about the map, or then why is the map here? Why should not it starts from here? Because we'll be seeing this. The map is an operator which only works on array objects, right? It will take input as an array and it will output as an array itself. That's why it's going through each and every element, because an array will have multiple elements. Like the first object is here, which in just an object in an array, the first zeroth index, then first index. So it's going one by one. And also one of the operators is like if you're mapping, say, yeah, so if you see here, what I have done is I have mapped name and city to the name on the right side itself. And it what it did is it concatenated the name and the city to the name itself. Why is that? Because I want my name and city both to be one. If you say this Maxine Mule San Francisco, right? So both are concatenated in one, right? But if you see, we don't have any space in here. What you can do is like you can simply put a space, or you can concatenate one more space in between by just going with plus plus sign and giving a space. Okay, here. So this is example of one of the operators, right? So we saw how to define the metadata and input and output as well. How we can map, why the map is used. This operator. We'll go back to our slides and proceed from here. And also, yeah, and we saw whatever we are writing here, it should go to my source main resources examples. Okay. So whenever you create a metadata, it automatically creates this folder and puts all those files inside your examples folder here. If I go and create one more metadata for say some other transform message component, it will create one more here and it will put inside the examples folder. Okay. All right. Time for quiz again. Oh, I did not show you this. Okay, so for this one, yeah, we said the files, metadata files will be here, but what we are writing each and everything here itself, right? We mapped it. We could have done it handwritten as well, right? And where does it go? If you see this configuration XML, like this is our message flow with the UI based, and last one is configuration XML because in the back, what it does is it creates the XML for whatever you have written or whatever you have mapped. So what it does is it creates each and everything in XML format in the backhood. Correct. You can even externalize it. So because I don't want to see all this thing here, what I just want to, externalize it using one file which can come and sit here in source bin resources. I don't want to see this here, right? We can do that as well. We'll see. Question is where does the data view code go? We just saw it. It is in configuration XML. Can you save the code externally and reuse it? Yes, we can do it. How we can do it? Let's see. So this is my yeah. So this is my payload here. If you see this payload, you can come and create multiple, you know, um, output as well. Like since my this you can have your output in an attribute as well, right? As I mentioned, if you just remember, we can have this attribute. I mean payload in attributes as well. You query parameters and all, but this won't be a keyword. That query parameter and URI parameter won't be a keyword then. It will be just your mapping data. Yeah, if you see, this is source code is inline for now. How we can change it to go to my source main resources. I can create a file with then extension .dwl. Okay, file name .dwl. So let's mimic that itself. I'll say file name .dwl or probably say accounts.dw, accounts mapping, accounts anything. Just say okay. And now we'll go and see in the configuration file. Probably it's not okay, it's here. See, it has set it as an attribute because we did not change it to the payload, we change it to the attribute. So that's why it came as an attribute here, accounts.dwl. Okay, and it's here in your source main resources. So once you go ahead and externalize it into your DWL file, it will come in source main resources. What you can do is like you just go and create one folder for yourself and just say all the DWLCs, and you can have all those DWLs inside that, right? In spite of having all those um at the source main resources level itself to make it even more, coding as per the coding standards. Okay. So can you say the code externally and reuse it? Yes, we just save this code. Next one is database selector. This is very important. What is the database selector? Database selector is basically it travels the structures of objects and arrays. Like if you're passing say payload and payload has my first name Nitish and my last name as Raj. If I want to have my first name from the payload, how I can traverse through that, right? It will be like payload dot first name. Yes. What about my last name? Payload dot last name. Yes. So this can be used across payloads, variable, and everywhere. Everywhere, as in wherever I see my data expression needed, I can have my selectors. So example of it, okay, I just mentioned it. So like my first name is in the payload, and I can traverse and navigate it to the payload.firstName. And if you see the dot is called a selector here. Okay. And there are many selector types. There are so many selector types, but we have only kept very common ones here. The first one is single value. Single value as in the any kind of just a single value from your payload when you want to navigate. So like here we navigated to the first name. Multi-value, how we can navigate it through. So multi-value syntax is dot and star and your key name. Here first name is my key name. My value is Nitish, right? And here my key name will be, we'll see what, and return type is say arrays of value of any matching type. So like it will return all the values of that particular key. So if I have multiple names, first name Nitish, first name Jitendra, first name Ravi, first name Shiva, first name Abhishek, and all those, so it will return all those from my input file or payload itself. The next one is uh, descendants, which how can we use it? It's like it takes two dots, right? Two dots, and it means if you have nested structure, nested as in one array inside any other array, how we can, and each and every array has a nesting level and it has same keys, and the same keys we want to navigate to, right? So we can use the descendants here. If you see the difference, so in multi-value, the all the repeated ones. So multi-value can have your, like it will traverse through all your repeated values, but not in the nested structure. In nested structure, if we have say multiple nesting like one level, two level, three level, but if you have only um, a, a root as well, it will only go to the root. It won't go inside the nesting. But descendants can go, but descendants won't work on the repeated elements. Okay, we'll see that. Followed by index will be worked on array. So like as we saw, index is like from 0 to length minus 1, that is n minus 1 of the array, and the range. So uh, range is like kind from 0 to 10, 0 to n minus 1 all, and index is just one of the elements. So if I want to have just the first element, I'll say 0. If I want to have 10th element, I'll just say 9. That is an index. Range is kind of range of indexes. Okay, we'll see here. Okay, all right here. Okay, so say my um, name is Nitish, and my last name is Raj, and I'm here. I'm saying first name. I just need the first name from here. How can I say payload dot? Since it has auto completion features, it will show you all the keys, name, L name, and everything. But I'm only having one single selector value, which is my the first name. L here. I'll just say name. It will give me my first name, right? If I have to use multi-selector, then I don't have. I cannot have the multi-selector on this because there are no multiple names. What if I have say name again, and I'll say Jitendra. So if I say payload.name, it will give me just only the first name. How I can get the second name as well? Using the multi-selector for the repeated elements, I'll say this one, payload dot star name. It will give me all the names, all the first names. If I have all other, it will give me that as well. Okay. So let's take an example of understanding it in more detail. Okay, here. Okay, if you see, this is ID. This is my first element. Probably I can show you it in here. If you see, let me make it bigger. Okay. If you see, I have my JSON, and JSON has multiple key and value pair. This is my first key value pair here. So this is my first key value pair. Then I have my second level. Second level has one key value pair. Then third level. Third level has one more key value pair, and my fourth level, which is again one key and value pair, right? So if I use just this one ID, say payload dot ID, I'll get the first one because I'm using the single selector. If I'm using multiple selector, what I'll get? Well, what I'll get 1 and 11. Why is that? Because it give me the repeated and what do you say? Same name keys as well. Sorry, same name keys as well, but it won't go inside my nested structure until unless I have this nested structure as ID. If I make it to the ID, it will have it as well, right? But if you see, it is not going inside this 221 333 at the top level, right? Because ID is my key. It traverses it to this one, but it's not traversing inside it. So I'm not having individual key and value pairs, right? But what I'm having is at the one level of object which has all these levels, correct? Since I had second level, see, I'm not going to this 223 because this is not the ID. This is not traversing it through it. Okay. But what if I want to have all the inside one as well? Can I use a descendants? Descendants will work is like it will take the first one, but second one is repeated. It won't. It go to the first level of it. It will give second. So let's see. Dot dot. What it did is it went to the first one ID. Yes. It did not go to the second one because it doesn't work on the repetitive element with the same key names. But it will go inside my another nested structure. It gives me 2, but it won't give me 22. Why? Because it's again repetitive in the same key value object. It goes to third level and gives me 3, but won't go to the 33 because again same. And the fourth level is as well. 4, 5. If I have one more ID, it won't because it's in same ID level, right? Same it won't give me. But what if I want to have a fifth level here? Fifth level. And I'll make it say fifth. Okay. So fifth it gave, fourth it had given, fifth is gave, but not again second and third inside that fifth level. Why? Because it won't work on this. And say your requirement is to get all the IDs, no matter what, where it is nested structure or the repeated ones, what you can do. You can combine descendant and multi-key value, right? Just by adding one star. It will give you all. And how is working here? Right? Because this first one dot is single selector, it will give the first, all right. Second, it will give you uh the descendants one first, second level, third level, fourth level, fifth level, and the star will give you all. So it's giving you all. Okay. Any questions here? Any question till this part? This is very necessary when you're working on projects. All right, we'll go to the next part, which is index selector. So I have an array of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this is my payload. Okay, this is my payload. I have written payload, and it will give me this. But what if somebody says, "Hey, I need the first element, first and then zeroth index"? I will say 0. That's it. This is my single selector, and I can have same thing for my multiple like composite structure as well. So like if I'm having if I'm having this one here, my name and something, right? I can go it through, but it should be a part of your array because indexes your works on array. I'll say payload. Payload gives me all. I say 0. It will give me the first one, first itself, first index. So this is my first index, which is an object. This is my second object, which is my first index of that array. Okay. If I say 1, it will give me this first one. If I want to have both, then what? So let's use my range selector. And how will that work is, let me add one more. So range selector is basically if you want to have, if your requirement says you get to have all the objects, no matter what, right? Or probably just from 0 to or first to 1, right? So index starts from 0, goes to 1, 2. So I can say 0 to 1. Give me all this one. But if somebody says I want from backwards, from Ravi and Jackie, not the Nitish, so how you can do it? So the range from backwards starts from -1. You might be wondering why, because from here it's starting from 0, but why backwards 1? Because 0 is already there. We don't have -0 as anything, and so it starts with -1. So if we start counting from here, it will be -1, -2, all that. Okay. So minus will give me Ravi. I say -2, give me Ravi and Jackie as well. Okay. So this was index selector and array selector. We'll go to the next part. Okay, which is if else and else if conditions. This is again whenever you're working on conditional logics, like, hey, if this part of my expression, this logic is true, then return me this output. If logic is not true, then return me something else, right? So that works with if else conditions. And in the syntax of it is, you write if your criteria expression, return if true, else if return, write your criteria, return if it is true, then else return something else, right? For example, so example I have written here, let me copy and paste. We say I have created one variable. Okay, how to create a variable syntax, like say var your variable name and equal to sign and your expression. This could be anything, right? But since I'm just having a payload here, it's kind of payload and object, right? So I said if the dot name is Nitish, give me success. Else if data dot name, which is one of the index selectors that we just saw, equal to n. So my first this name has the first letter as n, say the partial success, right? And if not, then say just failure. Okay. So if I say instead of Nitish, I say only net. What is it? Success? No, because it did not match the whole string. But yeah, it matched the first index. First as in zeroth index, the first element, n. So it gave me this one. So you can write if else conditions. Any questions in this? Here now we are coming to the map operator. So map operator basically is used to apply transformation to each element in array. Like we had an array of 3 names, myself, Nitesh, Jitendra, Ravi, right? So each and every element of that an array is an object, correct? And that is, and if we have to change anything there, what you can do is like we can use map. So map only works on arrays, and the structure of it The syntax says, if you see, payload payload is something like this. This will be an input. It can be a variable. It could be a kind of reading the file directly here, an array format. And this map is a keyword here, and this is a lambda function. What is a lambda function? Lambda is it will be invoked as in it receives two. It has two parameters. One is index and the value. If you don't put anything here, like if you don't say index and the value, then by default, if you want to traverse through your elements in array, you can use dollar and double dollar sign. So double dollar sign will act as this index, and the value and the data will be your single dollar. So if you're appearing for interviews again, this question is like very common, right? Input will be JSON. Not sorry, not JSON, JSON or Java array. So input has to have. It will work on XML as well, by the way. So just think of it as an array. So input will should be an array because it won't work on your objects until unless you do it otherwise, and returns the array, right? So just remember this: input array, output will be an array of this map function. Okay. Next one is map object. uh, by the name suggests, right? So map worked on arrays, map object should act on objects itself, right? That is the same, but there is a big difference because your array has elements, your indexes, right? But your map object has your key and value pairs and also your indices, right? So if you see in this example here, so my data is I have, you know, uh, I have A and I have A as a key, B as a value, C as a key, D as a value. Correct. So what this $3 denotes here? It's the indices. What does that mean? Indices. Indices like this should be the 0th index. This will be my second, right? Because this is my key and value pair. Unlike in the map operator, this double does not do the index. Index here is the triple dollars. The value will be denoted by single dollar. So like B can be denoted by single dollar, yes. D can be denoted by single dollar, yes. How about A and C? These are keys. Okay. If you see here, index is 0th, yes. Key A, value B, second index first, first, and data is C and D. Okay. We can check this as well, right? If you see. And one more very important thing is it takes the object and returns to the object here, correct? But if your requirement says, hey, I need to have like my input is object, but I don't want an object as an output, what can I do? What operator can I work on, right? So there comes pluck. What pluck does is it map an object into an array. Same parameter, it will have two parameters. One is an object, another is mapper. And if you see on the left hand side, the same, each and everything is same. It's just I'm using a plug. But instead of giving me an object, it is enclosed by your square bracket. That denotes an array, right? So in most of scenarios, you will come across this operator, plug. Going to the next one, flatten, which is again a very basic and most common. So what it does is like convert a set of sub arrays into single flattened array. So like suppose if I'm having an array is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the number of arrays, another array is ABCDF, number of strings, and I want a final array as this. Okay. Single array. I don't want a multiple array. I just want a single array. How can I do that? So I can use this flatten operator, which will be working on this set of multiple arrays. It flatten its array of arrays and out give you output as this one, right? So for example, let's take an example here. I'll say this. So this is my array in C. A main array has multiple arrays. This first index has another array, 4, 5, 6, an array inside an array, a blank empty array, and the last one is null inside an array, right? Let's remove this. Okay. How can I flatten this? If I want all the arrays inside a single array, right? So it what it does like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 came in a single array, but not the sixth one, because flatten will only work till one part of nesting, right? It removed one it removed only one single level of your array. If I had another array inside an array, it won't have removed. So if I 6 has it here and I say 1 again, it will have a nested itself. It will just remove the first level of nesting. If you want to have more flatten, just add another flatten and you're good to go. And one more thing to remember, it does not remove the null values. Flatten does not remove that. Okay. So, um, okay, any questions till this part? I think we have another 15, 20 minutes. Any questions till this part? So next one is writing expression for XML output. So this is very interesting. So XML, like if you're working on JSON, what you can do is like you have key value pairs, right? But this is not the same case in XML output. You have to have one root element. And what is that? And how here? So if you see on the right hand side, we have an XML, right? This is my root element. Can it go and run without having this root element? Never. XML has the root elements ever. We'll see how. And you can specify if you want to have attributes for XML output. What does my attribute? So root here, if I'm mentioning father as Mr. Muley, and these are all child and subchilds, I'm defining it here. What I have it because I am specified this as an attribute, and it has a syntax of saying at the rate attribute name and attribute value. Attribute name is your key, right? This is your say attribute name. You mentioned father as a key. And attribute value, you are say taking it from some other payload dot some name or something like that, right? So let's take an example of this. Do we have it here? Okay, slide XML. Okay, something wrong. Mhm. Okay, we see here, I have converted to JSON format because it has a flight, which is a root. What if I remove it? I have removed it. It says illegal to have multiple roots because it is expecting a root element, and the first element itself, airline, core, destination, each and everything, it is thinking of this it as a root element because we have not specified one. So we need to have in XML data each and every time a root, right? And if you see here, it has flight as root, return as a single flight, return as another flight, and all the values inside it. What you can do is like you can work on it using say your all the operators that we just saw, probably plug. So because it is giving me the output as an object. What if I just want output as an array? I can use plug here. Plug this. This was what? This was the value, right? All the data. So it returned me this, correct? And there are many other operators like order by. You can order by, say, price. So price is 400 and 199, but I need to have this price above on the first one. What we can do is like I'll say order by price, something wrong. On what price? Okay, some issue here, I guess. Okay, so you get the gist, right? So we used this particular thing going on. So we had only payload. We use plug. We can have, say, flattened. So probably if we have multiple arrays inside, we could have flattened it and did all these things. Correct? We're running out of time. Let's go ahead. Next one is this one is very important again. Calling a flow from data view expression. How we can call from data view expression. So probably if we have um, a requirement where you have to make a request, make a call to another system, on a third party system, or probably another flow inside your application to get some data. So you can there use a lookup function inside data view expression. How that would work is you'll have to send two arguments. The first argument is the name of flow to be called inside double quotes, and the second one should be your payload. Like if you're what you're sending. If you're not sending anything, just say null. If you're sending anything, just mention that. So it doesn't mean payload has to be payload here. It could be your key value pairs, just the value and all those things based on how you're calling the third party system on another flow. And the third argument is optional, which is timeout. So you have to make sure that whatever you're calling should return you the data in 10 seconds. I think that is a default one. I'm not mistaken if not changed. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. And if you want to increase it by another, so milliseconds or seconds, you can mention another optional parameter as a third one, slash, not slash, comma, say 10,000 milliseconds, right? So, so that will be a timeout for that lookup function. First limitation is cannot call subflows. Why it cannot call subflows? If you're trying to call a subflow, it won't be called because it is that subflow. The flows is actually created in that manner that it if somebody is calling it without having a flow reference, it won't be called until unless it has an input section. An input section is blank. That means it's a private flow or a subflow, right? Let's go and see. So what I'm doing here is I'm calling a flow here. Lookup flow payload. I'm sending a payload here, and uh this is my flow. So this is my flow, not a subflow, which will be returning. Which what it does is like it's just concatenating payload.name and sending across to the HTTP listener. Okay. Next one is creating multiple transformation. So creating multiple transformation as in we saw this like you can have, let me show it here itself. So like say you had created this payload, I mean you did this transformation, right? And you want to have multiple targets. You want to have it saved in payload attribute or variable or any other thing, even in a file, you can create it, right? It will go to that particular file. This wise you can have multiple attributes and multiple transformation targets. Okay, so you have multiple payloads, attributes, and all those. What you can do is this particular target on, if you click on this pencil sign button, it will show you that the existing script. So you can have it inline file, you can save it in a variable or attribute, and all will be shown here in the drop-down itself. I hope this is helpful to you. So you can add a new target button, switch between multiple transformation as we saw, and you can set the way to store the result in attributes, variable, or just the payload. Okay. Again, a sample quiz. We'll be starting with the main quiz after that, I guess. Yes. So sample quiz is, you can just type it down. Does the target of transformation have to the payload? As in, if you are creating a database script, should it be only be stored in a payload? Can we store into your attribute or a variable outside my configuration XML and all that? So answer is yes, we can have it in variable, we can have it into attributes, store it externally for reuse other than payload, right? Is DataWeave expression case sensitive? Yes, it is. Difference between map, object, and plug. Anybody can unmute themselves and just speak on, or probably just write it in chat box. So map is used for, it takes an input as an array, outputs an array, it goes to all the elements, right? To transform, map object works similarly, but only thing is it works on all the elements, but of the object, and outputs an object as well. What if you're working with objects, but you want an output as an array? Plug comes that much handy in those conditions. Next is, does flatten remove null values? We saw it does not. And also, flatten does not remove your nested level of arrays. It only remove the first level of nesting. It won't go. If you want to remove all those, if you want to flatten all those nested sub arrays, you have to flatten it multiple times. Sorry. And where DWL files are stored in the project structure, source main resources, source test resources, main mule, or source test m unit. You can write down your answers. It stores in example folder. What where? I mean, which of the folder of below? I think it should be. What do you think? Yeah,
Yeah.
the first A. That's right. Is the first one, source menu sources. Okay. So time for the quiz now. It is a trivia quiz. Jitendra can take it from here. I'll just share the screen. And if you have any questions before that, yeah, just ask me here.
Yeah, Nitish, like if you want, you can also take the quiz. That's fine. Like you can continue here also.
Okay, okay. Yeah, we'll wait for 30 seconds. If you have any questions, just ask. Anybody in chat box or unmute themselves. I did not go in very detail because I wanted to teach very basics. So like, what is data wheel? How does it work? Very basic navigation, structure of all this, and also the most common operators like map object, plug, uh, reduce is there, but you can have advanced transformation using reduce too. Then you have others like join by, split, order by, group by, and creating a variable we saw. We did not see functions. Most of the simple operators we saw, yeah. So if you have any questions, just let me know. Otherwise, we'll start with the trivia quiz in the next 15 seconds. And we have, I think, 4 or 5 questions.